Hello and welcome back to TechNuovo. My name's Steph and today we are running through Fallout 4 on the Steam Deck and the settings that I am using on that game. Now the game is relatively old now, coming out in 2015, but the new TV show has launched on Amazon Prime, so we thought we'd take a look at Fallout 4 on the Steam Deck and see what kind of quality we can produce. Let's get into it. Also, don't forget to subscribe. So before jumping into the game, there is a couple of things that I would like to point out. The first being, if I go into the properties and to compatibility, I am using Proton Experimental as my Steam Play compatibility tool. And the second thing is, this game has a launcher, which makes it fairly unique. So as you can see, the game does actually launch into a launcher to begin with. Now, there are two ways around it. Plug a mouse in, because a controller does not work. I am using an Xbox One or an Xbox official controller here, but I have plugged in a mouse to be able to control where I want to go, so you can jump into the options and change all your graphics settings. And this is where all the graphics settings actually takes place. The other thing you can do is use the on-screen touchscreen, which I'm using at the moment, and you can move and hover your mouse over and use the on-screen touchscreen to make changes on the settings on this screen. Anyway, let's dive into the graphics settings I am currently using. Resolution at 1280 by 720 because I am plugged into a monitor. I will run through that in a moment why. TAA best quality on there. Anti-sotropic filtering at 16 samples. I am using a medium preset. But if I dive into the advanced, I have got the texture quality on ultra, shadow at medium, shadow distance at medium, decal quantity at high, lighting quantity at high, God rays quality at low, because that is very demanding, depth of field at low, and ambient occlusion SSAO high. I've got everything turned on except motion blur and lens flare down here. And in terms of view distance, everything is set fairly minimal. Distant object detail at medium, and then object detail fade at medium as well. Now, the biggest thing I have found with the graphics in this game is when it comes to weather effects, and that raining, lightning weather effect that really tanks the frame rate. But for the most part, in Fallout 4, especially out in the Commonwealth, in the Wasteland, essentially, I am able to achieve, when plugged into a monitor, I am able to achieve pretty much a solid 60 FPS. Now, if I look on the map at the moment, dive into the Pip-Boy, I am around kind of the eastern section of the map in this busy town down here. Hester's Consumer Robotics I've just come from, and it has dipped, especially when I've been in combat in this particular area. It has dipped a little bit, but nowhere near as much as I thought it would. It's still a pretty solid graphical experience, especially with things turned up from a mixture of high and medium, high, and then the ultra on the textures. Looks very, very nice. But as you can see, this game is pretty much locked at 60, even when combat does get a little bit tight. The other thing as well I have noticed on this game from time to time is, depending on the weapons being used, if I've come up against a lot of people using laser weapons and that kind of thing, then graphical frame rate can be affected then, and I generally hit around really the 40s to the mid 40s. I have seen it drop down to. But, of course, it is an old game as well, don't forget. So, there is that. So, there you go. We've just seen a little bit of a stutter there, going down to the 40s, 47s, but I am sprinting through town. If I stopped, then that should, yeah, that's definitely just gone back up to the 60s. So, depending on what it has to render on screen at any one time, there is that. It does drop, but it is still absolutely playable. What I did want to talk about is when you are running it on the Steam Deck screen, this game is pretty much capable of playing at 90 FPS as well if you are playing directly on the Steam Deck screen. So on screen now is some footage of me shot on my mobile of filming the Steam Deck screen directly running around the Commonwealth or the Wasteland area. I've actually left the city in this clip, and as you can see, I am hitting above that 60 FPS mark, and it's hovering sort of around the 80s, hitting that 90 FPS at times as well, and in certain scenarios staying pretty consistent to that 90 FPS on the settings that I have currently selected to play this game. So it is nice to know that if you are playing it on the Steam Deck screen, you are getting a much superior frame rate. In terms of text though, on the Steam Deck screen, it is a little difficult at times to read because it is obviously so much smaller than playing it on a desktop screen. But in terms of game performance, there's nothing I can really complain about playing this game on the Steam Deck at all. It's a pretty decent title to be able to pick up and play on the go. So there's two places in this game I wanted to talk about, which I have found have been a little bit more difficult to run than anything else I've seen in this game so far. The first being Diamond City, and I think that's purely because there is just so much here that needs rendering at any one time. Although I am hitting a nice consistent 60 FPS at the moment, it's relatively decent. During the daytime it is a little bit harder to run. It does drop to the mid 50s. If I'm playing on the Steam Deck screen, then yes, again running that 90, or I'm at 55 now, have a look at that. But it does again drop down from that 90 FPS consistently down to a lower FPS level, but nothing I would say too game breaking. The second place that I find is quite difficult to get that consistent FPS is the Institute, which is unlocked, as you probably all very well know, at the end of the game if you follow the science track. But this is a little bit harder to run, and I mean, purely because it's probably a little bit shiny and things need a little bit more help with rendering. But yes, I have noticed the FPS does dip from time to time in here. But at the moment, it's running pretty consistently. So what I've just said may not make much sense, but I have noticed it in the past be a little bit difficult to run. But at the moment, as you can see, it's doing quite a nice job of staying relatively consistent at that 60 FPS level, or 90 on the Steam Deck screen itself. As we are running that frame rate pretty consistently, the other thing I wanted to talk about is battery life. Now, jumping into the Steam Performance Overlay menu, you can, if you wanted to, limit that frame rate limit, enable the frame rate limit and get it limited to something lower than that max frame rate, purely just to save battery if that's something that you wanted to do. If you were going on a longer road trip, for example, without access to a plug, then maybe that's something that you would want to consider. And really here is just a quick example of that lightning weather effect that I was talking about, dropping that FPS level slightly down to the mid 80s as opposed to the full 90 that the game is, or the Steam Deck is pretty much capable of. It does unfortunately have a slight dip in FPS when the weather effects really do start kicking off. And I found that running around the actual Wasteland or the Commonwealth in the environment is absolutely fine. Very smooth gameplay as well. And for the most part, looks really, really good. It does dip every now and then, as you've just seen. It did go down to the low 50s. Of course, if I'm on the Steam Deck screen, then again it does drop a little bit further than that, but not huge, and it does not interrupt the smoothness of the actual gameplay that we're able to achieve with Fallout 4. So there is that Fallout 4 for you on the Steam Deck. I think it's a very nice game if you're watching the show on Amazon Prime and you're wanting to get back into a Fallout game. Fallout 4 on the Steam Deck is not a bad place to start. It's actually a pretty decent game and runs very, very well on the Steam Deck, albeit albeit not much in terms of negativity. So I've got nothing bad to say about Fallout 4 on the Steam Deck. It's really, really nice. So check it out. It's a decent title for sure. Oh my god, I was just about to do the outro for the video and then a bear came along. I can't remember what it was called. Yaogwai. This is the thing that attacked the Brotherhood of Steel bloke in the in episode 2. Came out the cave, didn't it? And then we were attacked by lasers from somewhere as well. Where do those lasers come from? That have almost killed me. Okay, now we're not under attack anymore. Let's end the video there. So thank you very much for checking out this Fallout 4 video on the Steam Deck. If you did enjoy it, please hit that like button. Subscribe to keep up with our latest Steam Deck videos. And also let us know in the comments down below, are you going to be playing through a Fallout game again? Whether that's Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, the new MMO one, Fallout 76 on the Steam Deck. Let us know if you're going to be playing it through, and if you know of any better settings that you're using, let us know in the comments as well to start a discussion. As I say, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.